Welcome to Lifting the Line, a construction contracting podcast. Welcome to Lifting the Line, the podcast where we talk about construction contracting, health, wealth, and anything construction related. I'm here with my co-host, Ellie Broadbent. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me.
You're always welcome here. That's why we keep you.
Thank you very much.
But today we've got a very special guest, one of my close friends, and he is a leader in construction operation management systems, but coming from a trade background. Welcome, Daniel Ouliaris.
Thanks, Andy, mate. Really excited to be here and have a chat with both of you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Mate, straight off the bat, give us a little bit of a background about you.
Background about me. So I started my career, going back to 15 years old, I was pouring concrete with my brother out in the suburbs on waffle slabs on weekends. So that's where it all started for me.
Yep.
And when I was 21, started a concrete company with my two brothers. So that was a 13-year journey, and we ended up, we started out of our garage and a $30K loan from mum, and slowly grew that business into one of Melbourne's leading concrete placement companies. So at its peak, we were running 130 staff, turning over $15 million annually, and that sort of led into what I'm doing now, which is operations management software. So we built a platform within that company because we had some real operational pain that we were experiencing, and we had to solve it. So fast forward 8 years later, and here we are. This is what I do full time. I run a high growth technology business, and I said goodbye to the trade quite a few years ago. So I do miss it sometimes, but software's the game now.
Have you given your tools away? Because I reckon that's the sign.
It's not long ago.
That's the sign that you're done.
Not long ago. But I can get them back if I want him. My brother's got him in his garage.
Sure. So not really. You've lent them.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, is you lent them out. Yeah.
That's so funny because I still look at my mixer and my barrows and my trailer still sitting there that I've got parked away. I haven't used it for years. Still got a trailer in the back of my car that I might use every now and again, but
you can still do
and
it.
I want to say for a rainy day, but the rain actually doesn't work for you guys. So no, not for a rainy day. You're not saving it for a rainy day at all.
yeah.
I did a love job not long ago, actually, like maybe 6 months ago. So a friend of mine did his driveway. We prepped it over a couple of weekends, and the prepping part I really liked. It was the pouring concrete. I didn't realise. I forgot. I forgot my pet hates with it. So rock up to the concrete pour in the morning, and it was exciting for the first 2 hours, and then you start shoveling concrete, and the weather starts heating up, and you're like, "Fuck, why did I agree to this?" Now I remember why I stopped doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back, like you started a concreting business with your brothers, and you said you took a little loan from mum. That's like I play in the bricklaying world, in residential bricklayers. I don't think there'd be a residential bricklayer out there that said, I borrowed 30 grand from mum to start my bricklaying business. What led you to that? What made you go that way? What made you think that you needed to get some equity in your business to start with?
Well, look, we needed equipment, right? We needed edge form. We needed to buy timbers. We needed to buy helicopters and tools and, a little truck. So, that 30K was to get us going. And like I said, out of our garage, so we had timbers stacked up in the garage, about waist high, and we used to pack the truck every morning and head to work. And actually, the two cars we had was a small truck and a little Verena, and I'd have screeds hanging out the back window, and traveling to the side in the morning. So we needed that capital to get going, get the first bit of machinery, and start turning the wheel.
Yeah. So how did you go from just you and your brothers to having 130 staff?
It was a journey. It didn't happen overnight. It was so we started with council footpaths and residential slabs, and I remember the first job that we won was about 13 house slabs in Bandura, and so we bought all the edge form for that, and at the time we were hiring machines and getting contractors in to come do the digging. So started with residential work, and we just slowly built up the brand and the reputation and the network, and started breaking into the bigger builders, and we ran that for about, I'd say about maybe 4 years, and then we started breaking into warehousing. So we moved from residential to industrial, and we started taking on, big industrial floors and logistics centers. And I guess the thing that underpinned, our journey the whole way was we were just really ambitious. And even though we didn't know how to use certain tools or we hadn't taken on certain work before, we'd take it on anyway, and we just go for it, right? And just learn on the fly. And, there was some expensive lessons that we learned along the way. But I guess it was that drive that sort of pushed us into, new work every few years, right? And then I remember one day we were pouring concrete out in Craigieburn on a warehouse, and it was like the fourth warehouse that we poured, and we were in the middle of a pour, and one of the concrete suppliers came to site, to see what we were doing, and he was just freaking out at the operation we were running, and he offered to give us an intro into the city, right? And that's when we got an opportunity to move into EBA work and high-rise concrete, right? So our crew was small, and it was like, we had probably 8 guys, and we had a fair bit of equipment by that time, and we'd built up a bit. We had a warehouse and a yard, and but when we got that opportunity to go into the city, that's when everything changed. So we landed our first 2 jobs. One was a job in Yarra Street in right next to Vic Market. It was a 14-story building, and the other was a big project in South Yarra on Daly Street. It was 2 towers. I think they were 30 levels each. So
had you ever worked in that commercial space in high rise before?
No. And we took the pouring methods from warehousing, right on helicopters and super flat floors, and we brought that into the high rise space, right? So we just started experimenting with stuff. Like we were the first company to bring in ride-ons on high-rise floors, right? So we'd get the crane to lift the ride-ons on, and we're doing crazy stuff. Like the penetrations on the floors, we were cutting them down 5 mil below finished floor height, and we're duct taping them so that we can have a clean run all the way through, right? And then run a chopper over it and get a super flat floor, and just doing really innovative stuff like that. So, and I think that. That energy that we had, it was like it permeated through the workforce, right? Just that innovative mindset, and we were full of energy, and we wanted to do things, different to how other contractors were doing them in the past, and I think our workforce really, really fed off that, right? And plus, we were young, right? We were young, and we could hang out with the boys and have a laugh, and and crack a joke. So, so that's where it started. That's where it grew, right? And we, we went from an 8-person workforce to about 60 guys in a 6-month period, right? Because we landed 2 jobs, and there was another 4 jobs that came, and most of these form workers, the way they work, they're doing 3 or 4 projects at a time, right? Big projects. So you get in bed with one, and they give you all their projects, and get in bed with the second one. Then all of a sudden you got 6, 7, 8 projects going, right? And there's a pour every second or third day, right? You need 10 guys on site, so you're oscillating between these jobs, and you got a workforce that you got to at its peak, we had 14, 15 projects per day going, right? Pause.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a crazy operation.
It sounds like you really took some innovative thinking to what you're actually doing, to the practical operation on site. What do you think, because obviously you've been pouring high-rise buildings for 50 years, why do you think the other guys weren't doing the same as you? Why do you think you felt like you were, what was holding them back? Do you ever think?
Look, I think it's, if I think about it now, it's kind of the same thing that holds them back in the technology space. It's that whole "this is how we've always done it" mindset, right? That's what it is, right? Yeah. So, and really, what it comes down to is just problem solving, right? Like, how do you solve a problem? How do you do it quicker? How do you do it faster? How do you do it more efficiently? How do you do it at less cost? And how do you do it better quality, right?
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, that's what drives your cost base and your profitability on a job as a company.
Yeah, because that's actually crucial when you're running any business. Like, you always got problems. There's problems that have implications, and those implications could be just a small implication, or they could be massive. But you've got to find a solution as quick as you can to minimize or stop the hemorrhaging from those problems. Yeah, and you're right. It's exactly the same with on site in bricklaying. It's exactly the same. Oh, this is the way we've always done it. You can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
as soon as you change the way you're thinking about the problem that you've got and really realise, actually, that's costing me 20 or 30% just because that's the way it's always been done. Yeah, and you're right. It goes into the software space as well. I can see how it can really tie in.
Yeah. And, just like to use a real life example, if we think about a high-rise building, right, they use post-tension systems, right? So post-tension it's a cabling system that's run through the concrete and it's stressed, day after the pour, 7 days after the pour, and then 21 days later, right? And then they run grout through the duct systems to secure it in place. So, and the reason they use those systems is to minimize the amount of reinforcement in the slab, so reduce cost, but also reduce the amount of labor required to get that floor up in the first place, right? However, what it does is it introduces standard deviation in the slab. So when you tension these systems, right? So these cables run, they undulate. I don't know, is that the right word? Undulate, oscillate through the slab, right? So when you tension these cables, right, the concrete moves with it. So you produce a super flat floor, but after the tension, that floor could be at 30, 40 mil.
Wow.
Right? So that was a problem that we had to solve. How do we stop that from falling back on us? Because if that floor moves 30, 40 mil, you're out of tolerance. We've got to hand over that floor to plus or minus 6 mil as per the Australian standard. Right?
Yeah, right.
AS 3610 is the standard, right? So that got us thinking, okay, so we got to get as-builts done the next day, right? So before the stress, get the as-built done, prove that we've given the floor as per the standard. So if it does move, it's out of our control, right?
Yeah, of course.
Because if you're going back in and you've got to level the whole area, 30 mil, and you got to pour self-level on the floor, that's cost, right? Those bags aren't cheap. Plus you got the labor to place it, right? And then you got the high spots. You got to grind that. Yeah. Grind is expensive, right? These blades are worth like $400 each. That was back then. They're probably worth more now.
Yeah.
So, you take all that into account. You have to find ways to solve these problems. Otherwise, you're just not going to be in business for too long, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So in that scenario, you got the assessor in.
Yep. As built next day, proved the floor was handed over as per spec. And and one of the things we did do with our workforce, we'd probably hold them once per month, training days in the office, right, in the warehouse. So we'd bring the guys in, the leading hands, especially that were running the crews, and we had a very particular way of running pours, and how we'd finish the concrete. So we would train our foreman, right, on how we wanted them to finish the slabs, right, once per month, and then they would go out and train, their workforce that they're looking after. So what that did was minimize defects, right? So the less we had to grind, the less we had to fill, the more profit we could make, right? Yeah. So it's just thinking like that, and what the industry's like, Andy. It's all about passing risk down the chain, right? So the builder wants to pass risk onto the subcontractor. So how does the subby protect themselves, right?
Yep.
Through documentation. So you stop that risk being passed down to you by documenting and proving that, hey, that wasn't our problem, that was there before, or was out of our control, right? You're paying us to do this certain job. That's not our responsibility. Yeah. So, record keeping and quality management was a big part of it too.
Yeah, I wish bricklayers would understand that we take on a job for a builder and they're contracting us to do the job. They're passing all the risk and the responsibility of the outcome down to you. Where I remember in my residential bricklaying business, we used to get whinging about inconsistency in the finish of the joints. I ended up making all my own joiners, and they were all in buckets and supplied them all for the guys. Said, rightio, any of those joiners you got in your buckets, leave them at home. They don't even want to be seen on site. I don't care if you think they're a better joiner. I want it all to be the same. It was unreal. Within probably 2 months, everyone came back to us and said, oh, geez, we haven't had that issue anymore. It was such a simple thing just to put in place. Yep. But the record keeping, if something goes wrong later on, is got to be imperative.
Yeah. Be mandated across the company that everyone had to rock up with their bucket of tools every day, right? To the point where if they didn't turn up with those tools, we'd send them home. Basic tools. A trowel. We used to get guys to carry brickage trowels with them to get into tight little spots. Their gumboots, their nips, everything they needed for their job on the day, right? And if they didn't turn up with that, get sent home.
Go home, get them and come back, or don't bother coming back till tomorrow.
Don't bother coming till tomorrow, exactly. So, you do that once or twice and you set the example with a couple and pretty soon everyone else falls into line.
It's funny that you say that because in bricklaying, a lot of guys don't think that they've got the authority to do that as the employer, but you are the employer. You're the business owner. You have every right to set the standards of what's expected in your business and tell your staff that that's what's expected of them.
100%.
Yep.
That's really what you're talking about is culture, right?
Yeah.
So, building a culture within a business and, these are things that I didn't really appreciate until building a technology business, right? But things that we did naturally in the concrete business without even being aware of it, right? So, bringing the guys in once per month and training them up, not only on placement methods and quality and, ways of working, but also when we launched the software within the business, how to use the software and why record keeping was so important, right? What you're doing is you're building a culture and you're setting the expectation for your workforce. This is how we want to operate and this is the standard that we expect from you guys, right? So, like I said, I appreciate that a whole lot more now after building a technology business because I've made hiring mistakes in this technology business too. And really what it comes down to is finding the people that match the way that you want to operate, right? So they match your values, right? So if you can hire based on your company values and how you want to operate, the chance of your company being successful because you have the right people is a lot higher than usual. So I think it's about being picky when you're with who you're hiring and who you're letting work for your business, and not just hiring everyone that.
Not just hiring someone because you need them.
Exactly, right?
Yep. In that thought process of hiring, and I don't know if you did this with the concreting business as well, but do you sit there and go, actually, I can see my business going to this direction? Do you start building the workforce first, or do you just address it as you need it?
That's a tough one. It's it's kind of a mix, a blend between two, right? Because in construction, you're tendering for projects. It's a process. It's not, you get a phone call, hey, I got a job, start tomorrow. It's you go through the tender phase. You got to tender for it. You got to win the work, and then you got to prepare for that. That work to start. So, it's a bit of you're following the bouncing ball where it's going to go, but you're also figuring it out as you go as well, right? So it's a blend between two.
Yeah. I remember when I was running my bricklaying business, your workforce would go up and down with the amount of work you had.
That's normal, yeah.
Which is really normal. It's in construction, and that's the shit you got to deal with.
Yep.
But it gave you the opportunity to, you might bring on a couple other people, but then you might not let go those same two people because you'd found a little bit of a diamond in the rough, or a little superstar that was going to fit into your business better. So, you kind of got to a point where it took you over a couple of years to build a really solid core team that could sort of, for lack of a better term, lead the minions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not unique to construction, by the way. I also experienced that in technology business too. So, not unique. So it takes years, right? You go through iterations of employing, letting go, and cleaning out the, separating the wheat from the chaff, and, letting go of the ones that are sort of, dragging everyone else behind. So, and keeping the diamonds in the rough, right? And over time, you build a workforce that's aligned with your company culture and your values, and, that you can trust to go out there and do the work and represent you when you're not there, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you said that you started building what's now Neo Intelligence back in the early days. Take me through a little bit of a journey of what were the problems that you were seeing coming up, and what were some of the implications that were going with those problems that warranted you needing to build an operations management system to tackle it?
So, look, really, the problems are really focused around there's two major pain points here. One is managing your workforce and your labor and productivity, and the other is record keeping. Okay, so with the workforce, and labor management, we had we tried, as the workforce grew, we tried different ways to solve the problem. So, when you got a workforce of 80 staff, and later the business grew to 130, right? So through the use of the software, it allowed us to expand it even further. But, when you go from 6 staff to 80 staff, you're a bunch of concreters, right? You didn't finish school, you didn't do a management course, you don't have any project management skills, no business management skills. So, you're managing this operation of 80 staff with the same tools and the same systems that you were managing, 6 staff with, right? It doesn't work. So we had to find ways to, so like managing where the guys were going every day, right? It was very rarely were they going to the same project 2 days in a row. So constantly moving around. So we had to find a way to manage that. So what we did was we built this whiteboard system, and it's, only when I started looking at other contracting businesses, I was like, fuck, a lot of people come up with the same idea, right? To manage the workforce.
Yeah.
So
is that like a whiteboard where you write things in it, or you put little Post-it notes everywhere?
Well, we had a whiteboard, and we went to Officeworks, and we got magnetic strips and a label maker, and we made 6 sets of every name, right, for every day. And we'd write the project name down and how many square meters we were pouring, because that would indicate how many staff we'd need on that day.
Yep.
And then we'd allocate the staff names. We'd drag and drop the magnetic strips. And then once we'd set the day, we'd text everybody manually. And then they'd reply back. So we'd, the message would say, hey, you're going to so-and-so project, start at 6:30, bring these tools, reply yes or no to confirm. And they'd reply yes, and then we'd tick their names off. Make sure, okay, they got the message, they're going to be there, right? Because concrete is like, if you got 1,000 square meter slab and, you allocated 10 guys and 3 guys don't rock up, the 7 guys that are pouring, they do their nuts on the day, right? So you got to make sure you got the numbers there, right? So it's literally do or die, honestly. It's do or die for concrete.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yep.
So, and then, we'd make sure we keep that whiteboard up for the week, right? Because then we'd have, every foreman would have a docket book, and they'd write every staff member's name that would be on site, and they'd record their timesheet. That would come into the office, and we'd triple check the timesheet against the schedule. Yep, that all matches, and then process payroll, right? So, but the problem with that process is not only the manual work that's involved, right? Yeah. Like literally,
I'm exhausted listening to you.
Yeah, me and my brother were working on that like for 3 or 4 hours a day, right? After being on site all day running a concrete crew. You'd come back in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, work on that for 3 or 4 hours, text everybody.
And easy to miss something.
Easy to miss something. Easy to double up a name. Easy to allocate somebody on leave.
Yeah.
And then the worst part was you'd send out all the text, and then a builder will call you up, say, "Hi, the form worker's not ready. We're cancelling the pour tomorrow." And you're like, "Fuck, I got to fucking redo the whole fucking lot," right?
Yeah.
And most of the time,
destroying.
Yeah, most of the time you were at home already, right? So every night we'd take a photo of the board just in case someone would cancel, right? And then if they would, we'd do it all again on a piece of paper at home and send off text message again. Yeah, it was really painful, really painful.
Yeah.
So that was one massive problem. Second problem was what that linked to, which was timesheets and payroll, right? So, look, I think, for your type of client base and brickies, in the residential space, they probably wouldn't have this pain point because they don't run complex awards with payroll. But
were you doing cash? I know some people talk about their pay packet when they went and got the envelope. Probably not that old.
Cash?
Yep.
No cash. No, there's no.
So at least you had a record that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No cash. No cash. No cash, Robbo. No. So
my first pay slip was a little yellow slip with some numbers written on it and money put inside it with some coins at the bottom.
Yeah, I know. But you'd want to make sure you had the record of what you got paid last week, the week before, and whatever. And
Yeah. Although, we should got paid cash today so we can avoid these high tax rates.
Yeah, absolutely. And every time you tap your card, it costs you an extra 1% or whatever it is. Anyway, that's another story. Yeah.
So that link to the timesheet process, right? The schedule, because the schedule send guys to site. Obviously, they're on site, and with the EBA, it's a pretty complex award. So there's rules like the first 8 hours of work are normal time, and then every hour after that's double time. There's a site allowance paid every hour, and the site allowance is dictated by the value of the project. There's a height allowance for every hour worked, a travel allowance, 1 travel allowance per day, a meal allowance that kicks in at 9.5 hours or greater, and a crib allowance at 10 hours or greater, right? Plus other allowances like, if you're traveling more than 50 Ks out of the center of the radius of the city, you get paid per kilometre, and then living away from home allowances, right? So,
yeah, and there is a huge amount of allowances when you get into EBA. But even in residential now, like in bricklaying, you've got to have your guys on wages now. You can't have them all as contractors.
Yep.
And there is overtime after a certain amount of time. There is a travel allowance every day. There is, do you get paid for lunch? Do you not get paid for lunch? Like there's all of these other things that still come into it as well. So they're not as many, and not on as great a scale.
But we're seeing it become more and more common, especially in the resi space now, right? With standard awards, right? So you've either got an award that they're paying to, or you got an EBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
one or the other. Exactly right. And the government, they've decided they pretty much want everyone on wages.
Yeah.
So if you're an employer, you've got to find a way of tackling this.
Exactly. So the manual effort involved with not only collecting, at its peak, we had 14 sites going per day, so 14 foremen, 14 sets of timesheets daily across 5 days, 75 timesheets per week, right?
Yep.
So pulling them into the office, right, was a challenge because they've got to come back physically.
Mm-hmm.
Then payroll team has to take that paper timesheet, transfer that to Excel, right? Then they've got to do their interpretation. It's a complex award. And when you're looking at numbers all day, you make mistakes. There's payroll errors all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually the highest anxiety day in the office, payroll day. Payroll ladies hated it. And then if you miss something, the guys would call you up 5 minutes later, oh, you fucking missed an hour, you missed this, you missed that, right? If you overpaid, you wouldn't hear anything. So everyone hated payroll day. So that was another big issue we had to solve there.
Yeah, for sure. And that guy's calling up, you've missed this, you've missed that.
Yeah.
That's bad enough when you got 5 guys working for you. If you've got 135 guys working for you.
It's insane, yeah.
And that's one thing that actually gripes the shit out of me. Like in construction, we've got guys that work for us that are generally not great with their money. Some of them are pretty poor with their money.
Mm-hmm.
So come payday, they're stretched.
Yeah.
And they like blowing up at anything when they're a little bit stretched. They're highly emotional fellas as well, some of them, But they'll ring up and go, you haven't paid? And you go, you haven't put your fucking timesheet in, mate. How can I pay you?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. I'll get that to you later. I need the money now. That used to drive me bonkers. So I can imagine that on a massive scale and send you bananas.
It does. It really does. And it just adds more stress to the stress that you're already experiencing running an operation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was all the, there were the pain points around the labor aspect. And then, we had a remediation crew. So, obviously we pour the concrete and you'd go back, whatever it is, a month later when the floor's stripped out and you got to grind around pans and construction joins and, fill little low spots and hand over the floor to the standard, right? Mm-hmm. So, we'd go there and because at that stage, all 3 of us were kind of on the tools. Actually, my older brother was in the office mostly. He was running the back end and me and the middle brother were mostly on the tools. So, these pours, we were there on the day. Like I was physically there, on the laser, running the pour. I knew what issues happened that day, whether it was concrete supply that wasn't consistent enough and we had cold joints and it stuffed with our levels or, the formwork that didn't set things, their heights properly, like set downs and, there was massive recesses where the timbers were that you had to fill or even Rio that was high, right? So Rio that wasn't chaired properly or sitting on top of stuff and, you couldn't get cover on it, right? Which would hamper the way you'd hand over the concrete. So, I knew what happened on that project, on that day, on that pour, and you'd go and try and fix your stuff and you'd have an argument with the builder about, that wasn't us, that was this, and, that they're always trying to push it onto you, cost onto you. And, some of the projects, we'd go back so many days on end just arguing the fact, black and blue, and we'd never win. Because at the end of the day, like they're holding the cash, right? They're paying you, you're not paying them. So, at the end of the day, if they don't want to pay you, they're not going to pay you, right? So, and if you don't have a paper trail to go back to, you haven't got a leg to stand on. So that was that really. Yeah, that really killed our spirits. Like you're breaking your back. You're pouring this concrete. You're working hard. You're doing massive hours, and then you don't get paid. You got to beg to get paid. Like that's just fucking wrong. So
it's sure, and it bloody feels personal.
It does. Yeah,
it feels personal for them. It's a business decision, and they're looking for a way of maybe squeezing a bit more out of the contract, or it's just part of their process. But it's personal. When you're a tradesman, you take pride in what you're doing. You're trying to get the best outcome on the day. You're making decisions. It feels personal when they try and take your money off.
Well, one of the things I used to love about concreting was, at the end of a hard day, you look back at this 1,000 square meter slab you poured and it's got a beautiful finish on it. You're like, fuck, look at what I just did, right? And then not to get paid for that, like fuck, what kind of fucking world are we living in,
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, they were the kind of problems we were experiencing. And I remember the day that we decided to just like bite the bullet and do something about it. It was a summer day. We had it was a really, really hard day. We all got back to the office at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. We had a stack of timesheets to process. The schedule had to be, organised for the next day. And there was disputes we were managing across like multiple sites, right? Builders not wanting to pay us for issues that weren't our problem. And we were just like, fuck, we got to do something here. Like, this is just killing us.
It's not going away.
Just killing us, like we're working 16-hour days, not getting paid. It's like, so so what we did first, we went out to the market and we're like, hey, let's go find something. Initially, we just wanted a site diary up, but not getting paid was the hardest thing to deal with, right? So we went out and we had a look at the market and we had a couple of vendors come in and, they were either platforms for the builder or, platforms that were maybe from other industries. And you get these guys to come in and pitch it to you and they're pretending like they know what's best for your business, but they don't understand your workflows. They don't even speak your language, right?
Yeah.
So we got introduced to someone that, that had a company that could build, an application for us. So we gave them a project brief and they really got it. They understood it. And we were like, fuck it, let's just go for it. I think they quoted us like $150K at that time. The business was doing well. We had a big problem to solve. And, we were innovators, right? Always looking for a better way. Like I told you earlier, I never afraid to jump in the deep end and do something we had never done before. And so we just went for it. So, and that was when I said to my brothers, boys, because they're like, my oldest brother's 10 years older than me and the middle one's 8 years older than me, right? And so that's what I said to them. I was like, I got to take the responsibility of, project managing this because you guys are fucking hopeless with computers. You got no chance of doing it. So,
but every time something's invented, it's because there's a need.
Yeah.
That is actually why innovation happens.
Exactly.
And when people want more innovation, they've got to go out there and look for where the need is. Otherwise, you're just making the same thing or something weird. It makes no sense.
Exactly. And quite often it's motivated by pain, right? Pain's the biggest driver, right?
Yeah. There's that old saying, what is it? Necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. So I spent the next year pouring concrete during the day and then building software at night. So testing features and drawing up little sketches. And so then I finally got it to a point where I was happy with it. I was like, okay, let's roll it out.
Sorry, how did you find someone who was going to make it? Because that would take a lot of just searching for someone who could make it.
Yeah, look, I think today there's probably a lot of agencies you can go to build apps now, right? But back then, I don't think there were too many. Like not that we looked around that much, but we got.
So it didn't take that long. I'm really interested.
No, well, the company that was hosting our servers, right? Because we transitioned from on-premise to cloud servers, right? And that's when cloud sort of started to become popular. And it was that company there that we went to, right? And they had a few developers in the background. They're like, yep, we can do it for you. And, they understood it was just one developer working across it, right?
Sounds lucky.
So spent a year on it. And then I got to a point where I was happy with it. I said to the boys, okay, let's go, let's roll it out. And we got all the foremen in. We hired a space, a boardroom. We got 20 guys in there, for like 4 hours on an RDO paid. We paid them. And that's what we used to do with our training. They used to come in on the RDOs and we used to pay them on the RDO. So they get paid for the RDO plus the hours we bring them in. Yeah. Right? That was an investment.
Value investment, yeah.
So
investment, but it's also a benefit to the worker too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Yeah, it says something.
And that's why they loved working for us because, like which other company were they going to work at that was going to invest like that? Not only in their training, but the work we used to give them. And we were really, really good to them, right? We looked after them like they were, they were family. So
many trade businesses in bricklaying and concreting, they're just looking to send the guy home to save an hour or two. They're always looking to cut down and take work off their workers if they're casual guys.
Yeah.
And it's a morale killer with workers. Anyway. Yep.
So, 20 guys in the room in one go and we train them up and we explain to them, okay, this is why we need it. And obviously naturally, and we see this today with the way we're rolling out software to our client base. You get half the workforce that's like, fuck yeah, let's go for it, love the idea, and the other half's like,
there's statistics around early adopters, those that wait, those that do it at the last minute, and those that just won't do it at all.
Yeah,
there's heaps of reasons.
The bell curve of adoption, right?
That's right. Yeah.
So that's when we rolled it out, and then rolled it out. A few minor bugs here and there, we got them fixed, and once it was off the ground and it was running, like it changed the business literally in like a 2 or 3 month period. Like completely changed the business.
Yeah.
We had, that scheduling process went from a 4 or 5 hour process every day to half an hour. And you could do it on the road. And you could take it anywhere with you, right? It was like, no matter what changes happen, you can do it quickly and bang, send off a notification, right? So we built a drag and drop scheduling system, right? Where you can drag and drop your staff and you can set your start times and special instructions and click a button and bang, all the SMS go out, right? And everyone can reply back and it would record that reply and, and you have visibility over it.
Yeah.
The timesheet process. So, we turned a 2-day payroll process into a 2-hour process for one resource. So it was 2 ladies for 2 days before Neo. And then after Neo, it was one resource for 2 hours. So we built in an engine that automated the EBA and then linked with our payroll system. And it just, streamlined everything. And the data accuracy was like through the roof, right? But the biggest thing was, and this is probably my favorite feature, maybe because it had such an impact on our business, but I don't know, it's really close to my heart, but the site diary that we built, finally rocking up to site with evidence of what happened, right? It just changed everything for us. Like arguments stopped becoming arguments and they become discussions, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden the builder wanted to work with us. Okay, we'll take this and you take that. And, so it wasn't just them trying to shove it down our throat every time. It was, more collaborative.
Yeah, it wasn't, we're the one in the right, you're the one in the wrong. You've got to prove me why I'm right, why I'm not right. It's
exactly.
This is factual. This is what happened.
Yeah. And then once you start operating that way, then they start to learn, okay, these guys have got their documentation in order. We can't go after them anymore because, that's how most builders work, right? They go after the weakest link in the chain, right? Most builders are skimming off their subbies.
Makes me think that they also need paperwork though too for what they need to send up their line.
They do,
for
sure.
You're going to give what they need to go,
The difference is though, they've got teams of people documenting on site. Subbies don't, right?
Gotcha.
They've got a leading hand on the tools doing the work. No paperwork, right?
Yeah.
So already at a disadvantage.
Yeah, 100%. I had a discussion with a builder the other week on behalf of one of our members, and I was asking him, he said, there was a variation. I said, well, what was the variation agreed to? He goes, we spoke about it and that's what it is. And I go, well, obviously it didn't get written down in a written variation. He goes, you know what brickies are like. They don't do the paperwork. And I said, well, you're the builder. I'm assuming you picked up the slack in the paperwork for the tradie, did you? And for the brickie and wrote it all down for him. And he goes, oh no. I said, well, see, now we're dealing in hearsay because neither of you had the paperwork.
Yep.
But if you'd just done a variation then and then, whether it was on a piece of paper or even in a record situation like with Neo, like
even diary notes hold up in court.
I was going to say those post-it notes do.
Yeah. What 100%. I've been to VCAT a couple of times, won both times because my diary entries, they were spot on, and we had photos for stuff as well, which is pretty rare. I was probably lucky I had the photo.
Well, you got to think, like you're going up in front of a judge that's going to rule on the case that has no background in construction. Probably doesn't even know what a building site looks like, right? So it all comes down to how well you can paint the picture for that person, right? 100%. And you paint the picture through your record keeping, right? So the better your record keeping, the better the picture you paint, the more chance you have of getting it ruled in your favor.
Yeah. And that's the one that has the biggest financial implication and probably alleviation of stress when you're owed money as well. Because like, as you know and I know, when you're owed money, your stress levels double.
I can't tell you how many Christmases we went through, struggling to find money to pay, the holiday pays, Christmas time, and not taking any wages. And like, there was a couple where we had, $900K owing to us, over the Christmas period. Pretty dark times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of people riding on that. A lot of
Yeah, absolutely. So And I love that you've come at it from a subcontractor point of view, because you're right. You spoke about other software earlier, and I've worked in construction management. Some of those other softwares, they're big packages that honestly, a contracting business just doesn't need all of those other features. You've really honed it in on what's really necessary for a contracting business and then just dialed in on it. Obviously that was really the point right from the start.
Well, look, that was the reason why we couldn't find anything in the market, because you got these providers out there that are trying to be the solution for everyone, right? But the reality is, you've got, the construction industry. It's split up to 3 tiers, right? You've got the developer, you've got the builder, and then you got the subcontractor, right? Subbies and builders, they have different workflows, different requirements, different needs, different pain points, right? And then within those segments, you've also got residential and commercial, right? So the dynamics change there as well. But yeah, that was one of the biggest things, right? We went out to the market, and yeah, there was platforms out there that were trying to be everything to everyone, right? And my experience, it just doesn't work. So that's why not only from our pain, but yeah, we had to make it really specific to subcontractors and their workflows.
Yeah. So what's happening with Neo now? Like you've built this over a period of time. Obviously, we went through that boom in your business, and now you're full time with Neo. What's the go with Neo moving forward?
And Neo's at an actually really exciting crossroads. We're in the process of raising expansion capital now. So it's gone through a massive growth spurt over the last 2 years. So the team's doubled over the last year. We're building out some really exciting features. There's one huge feature that we're building out at the moment, and it's really focused around that labor component, right? So the way that we see it, and these are based off the insights that we've been able to uncover, and my experience in the industry. Projects are won or lost on labor, right? Materials stay pretty stagnant, right? Pretty stable. And most contractors will allow a wastage percentage in their pricing. 6%, 10% wastage. It's the labor that gets you, right? So if you're not managing that labor live, it's going to cook you, right? It's going to cook your project. You're not going to be profitable. So that's the single biggest lever that contractors can pull on to protect their profits. So what we're building is we're calling it a 3D productivity tracking feature, right? So tracking productivity 3 layers deep, because the problem is with all the systems out there at the moment, doesn't matter whether it's residential or commercial, or ERP systems or platforms like Xero. They all track costs at a single layer, one level, right? But the way that contractors estimate their work, right? They estimate it 3 layers deep most of the time, right? So it's area, it's element, and then it's cost code, right? So what happens is they're working off lagging indicators, right? So by the time all this data is fed into their cost management system or their ERP, the damage is already done. They've already paid the wages. Labor's gone, right?
It's gone, and they might not know that for weeks or months.
Exactly, right? What good is it to them then? Yeah. And not only that, when it does go wrong, they don't know how or where it went wrong, right? So what we're working on now is a leading indicator into their productivity, so they can know in real time how they're tracking the labor against their baseline, right?
And against each job, I'm imagining.
And against each job. So not only they're managing their labor live in real time, and they can maneuver as they need to keep that job on track, but it's going to give them insights, future project pricing, right? So they can be more competitive.
Yeah, 100%.
Future projects, right? So
absolutely.
That's where we're heading, and AI is obviously everyone's talking about AI, and I saw a couple of old guys in the airport the other day. They were talking about ChatGPT, 75-year-olds, right? I was like, that's when I was like, fuck, AI is really taken off now, So
that was your evidence.
Yeah, that was my evidence. Yeah.
My dad's getting close to 80, and he was blown away and loves ChatGPT because he sells stuff on eBay, and instead of writing a description,
he puts it in.
He goes, "Give me a description for this thing for an ad for eBay," and he gives him a thing, he copies and pastes it in.
It's unbelievable.
Loves it.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're everything we're doing now is going to be focused around AI, because AI can just give us insights that usually go missed, right? The reality is we've got all these unique data assets that are being gathered by Neo, right? Whether it's, your timesheet data or your site diary data or your scheduling data or payroll. So AI is going to be able to, compile all that and give you insights that you normally wouldn't get, right? And you can use them on the go. So AI is going to be a big part of our strategy moving forward.
And of course, you're based in the commercial world. That's where you've come from, and that's kind of your existing client base and the focus client base that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you're working with contractors that might have 20 staff up to 500 staff over multiple sites.
Exactly.
How we ended up becoming quite close and we're working together is I came and saw you about 6 months ago and said, I work with residential bricklayers.
Mm-hmm.
What you do for contractors in a large scale, can we put something together for residential bricklaying businesses that's populated with our documentation, got our systems and procedures and set that on a platform like Neo to really fulfill those things that all of us are dealing with. We're not just dealing with it in the big space. If I could have real-time data in front of me when I was running my bricklaying business rather than me running diaries and scheduling it out, I'd be just loving it. And of course, we see at Briggy's Network that where bricklayers are being forced to put on guys on wages, they need to have an easy system that they can use to capture all of that. So we've come to Neo, and you've been able to say, yes, we can develop a Neo program for residential bricklayers, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, so am I, mate. It's so what exactly what we said. We've taken the information you've given us, and we've built a version of the platform that's specific to bricklayers, right? Set up with all the forms they need and the timesheets and ready to go, right? So they just jump straight into training and learn how to use it, and they're off and away, right?
Yeah,
and really, you think about most tradies, contractors. They're always focused on costs, right? And I get it. It's it's just part of the mentality of running a business. But really, all you need is to win one dispute through the paperwork that's captured in Neo for it to pay itself off for the next 3 or 4 years, right?
100%.
It's literally that simple. So
absolutely 100%. And I suppose the big driver for me to come and see you is I'd been looking for a platform, or if there was anything out there that could service residential bricklaying business owners to be able to do this. And there was nothing. I flew to America and went to World of Concrete, which I know you've been to, where they have
a couple of times
the biggest bricklaying competition in the world, because I thought if there's going to be a place in the world that's got software that can work for a bricklaying contracting business, it'd be there. Didn't exist.
No.
It doesn't exist. So I think it's really exciting that we can work together to be able to put out a software program and a system that can deliver these results and fix these problems in bricklaying.
Yeah, for sure. And, like you spoke earlier about, our target audience, 20 to 500 staff companies. But, in recent times, the last 6 to 12 months, we've been servicing quite a few companies that have 8 staff, 7 staff, right?
Yeah.
Not just bricklayers, plumbers and painters and, all different trades. So, I think it's the natural progression of Neo where we start to go down market, right? And start to provide, lighter versions for the smaller residential trades. Because like you said, they have the same problems, just on a smaller scale, right?
Yeah. And there's kind of actually a real legacy about that we can kind of drag trades into the digital world. So you've got that information in front of you. You don't have to be running all of these scribbly pieces of paper and writing quotes on fucking napkins and all that other shit that we used to do years ago. You just don't need to do that. And if you're willing to get out of that, that's the way it's always been attitude. You'll find these massive results that you can get from it. But the other side of it is your business goes to being 1,000% more professional.
100%. Yeah.
And we've always been looked as dirty concreters or dirty bricklayers. We're looked at the bottom of the barrel. You've got systems and procedures like that and documentation in your business. So you have your contract at the start of the paperwork, and then everything else that happens on site to marry it all together, man, you just look so much better than any other tradesman.
For sure. And we're gonna see a huge shift in mentality over the next 5 to 10 years. It's already happening, and I think partly due to just the information that's freely available right now. Right, we're so connected, and you can find information anywhere. Right, so you go back 10 years ago, you couldn't find this information, as freely as you could today. And also, you're getting this new generation coming into the industry now. That's coming in with a fresh mindset, and and because they're seeing all these these entrepreneurs online and ways of doing things. So we're going to see a massive change in the next 5 years.
I mean, my daughter did a trial in a kebab shop where she chopped onions for 2 hours, and she came home and said, surely there's a machine for that. I was like, there actually is a machine for that. But that's her expectation.
Yep.
And that's it. That's the next generation. Why isn't it on?
100%.
But I mean, I'm thinking about, a lot of the people that you're working with all the time are the people who just want to get a quote out and they want that job. And then, it's just the small things, but it'll make a big difference, because I know getting a quote out is sometimes a real hurdle for people, isn't it? So that you don't have to have, 5 staff to be challenged by that. It could just be you. But, if you had the system in place, then you could get those, get the jobs.
Well, exactly right. Well, one, if you've got the data in front of you to know how much it's going to cost you to do that job, you can do the quote really quickly. That's probably the big key, because sometimes in winning any job, especially in a small residential position, you haven't got much time between the first time you meet that potential client and when they want that quote. They want it quickly, and response time is the absolute key. If you're not answering the phone and getting back to them within 20 minutes, then meeting them on site in a day and then giving them a quote by the end of that day for them to make a decision on or see whether it fits in their budget, then you're probably going to lose. Quick time to get to them, but you've got to know what it's going to cost you to do that job, and that's what it's all about, having all that operational data to put back into when you put the quote in at the start.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I know when I've had a job done by someone, they've said, I'll just go to the car and I'll send you the invoice from there. I mean, like you said, it's all in your pocket. Why can't you just be on top of all those bits and pieces and you're not chasing? Or if you don't end up sending the invoice out, you're not going to get paid.
Oh, God, the amount of guys I know that don't send out invoices.
So, because what I'm hearing is the large-scale thing from you, but I'm also hearing you're working with brickies that have got, some big teams, but mostly it is just the business owner and maybe a couple of brickies that are with that person. And so, just to make it easier, free them up.
Yeah, it comes down to data and systems, right? Understand the data that you've got and then implement the systems to have a well-oiled running machine. So, and those systems might be quoting templates, or, there might be quoting metrics that they use. I don't know how you get you guys to quote per brick, per job. Pretty sure you're getting into to quote everything.
If you've got an
every job
LMS
unique,
that could work for you, maybe you choose one way or choose the other way. You could have both those options in the LMS that can suit the way that you run your business.
Well, it's exactly the same as concreting, Daniel. Look, we're working with volume. So whether it's square metres on the ground or square metres in a wall, but that doesn't mean that every square metre is the same.
Yeah.
And to get to the price per square metre, you kind of have to know what's going to happen on the job or have a good knowledge of what's happening, what it costs you to do that, add it all up, and then go back to
go backwards.
Go back to it. So
you in brickwork, is there straight runs? Is there returns? What's the access like? What's it going to? How much effort is it going to take to get my material from the front to the back? And all these things have to be considered when quoting a job.
Absolutely. Where what happens in bricklaying is they start with the per 1,000 rate or the per brick rate of how many bricks in per square metre, where really that's the price they get to at the end and then have to come back to it to deliver the price. You can't start with that price and try and work it into it.
Doesn't work.
Well, you're never going to make a profit. You're never going to know if you're making a profit.
Yeah.
At least this way you're going to know if you're losing money when someone says that's the price they're going to give you per brick.
Yep. 100%. And then retrospectively, if you're the data, right? If you're recording the data and you know, okay, how many hours did I invest into this job? What did I charge? Then you can start to measure, okay, for this type of job, I estimated 900 hours. It took 1,000. The next one, I gotta lift it up and increase my price, right? So you have to be learning of every job that you do and adjusting as you go, right? You're constantly fine tuning.
Yep. You talked about your favourite feature before, which is the record keeping.
Yeah.
The thing that shits me the most in having a trade business and in bricklaying is scope creep.
Mm-hmm.
Guys get asked to do variations or the job changes from what you originally agreed on. You don't document it. You either forget about it or you have to try and charge for it later on because you haven't got the data there to just invoice for the variation.
Mm-hmm.
We did that. Yeah, it was agreed to. We signed for it. Got done. We do all of these jobs and something changes along the way, which things are naturally change, especially.
Yeah, it's construction.
Well, and that's that it's kind of that design and build thing as we go. Once upon a time, that was what you built, but now things change. Your clients come and change things. Scope creep costs you so much money, and you don't really think it's much. But if you add it up at the end of the year, it might be $30,000 or $40,000 or $50,000. That's clear bloody profit.
Profit, yeah, off your bottom line. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're the things that I think are just amazingly simple to overcome.
Yeah,
just by having the right operational
It
system.
removes
in place.
that winning the argument thing that you were talking about,
100%.
where you're arguing and it's you versus them. You've got it written down. All the
and it's all about
documentation's
transparency and making things clear, right? So, you produce a quote and that quote has the scope of works, right? Which clearly states, okay, this is what we've quoted on.
Yep.
And then when you come time to do the job and you're doing a variation to the original scope, right? Or bill of quantities or whatever it is.
Yep.
And most of the time it's the business owner that's on site, right? With your clients. So they're there, they know what's going on, they know what they quoted, and they see a variation. They're like, okay, that's a vary, document it, write it up, take some photos, get it signed off by the client. Then it's clear.
Yeah.
This is what we quoted. These are the extras we did. This is what we're charging extra. There should be no arguments at the end, right?
No.
But they're not doing that, right? There's no transparency. There's no clarity, right? And that's why, they're getting shortchanged and they're not winning these disputes and not getting paid for these varies. And they're out of pocket 40, 50 grand a year.
Yeah, 100%. And there's so many guys out there that are just getting cornered with that every day, especially now the market's downturned a little bit.
Yeah.
Getting screwed at both ends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Get screwed on price at the start and you get screwed on your things at the end. Yeah, exactly right. But this is just an amazing solution. And that's why I love Neo.
Mate. Man, great to be partnered with you, mate, and looking forward to the future. It's a bright future ahead.
Absolutely. Ellie, do you want to ask Daniel where anyone can get in contact with Neo if they've got a contract?
I have no doubt that someone's going to listen to this and think, I need to get in touch with that guy. So how can they do that?
Yeah, you can head to our website, so www.neointelligence.com.au, and you can request a demo, get in touch with our sales team, or you can hit me up on LinkedIn. You can find my profile, Daniel Ouliaris. Again, we've got a company profile on LinkedIn and we've got an Instagram, Neo Intelligence. So yeah, any one of those three channels you can, or reach out to the Brickies Network and.
So Neo Intelligence.
Neo Intelligence,
Yep.
NEO Intelligence. Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm thinking The Matrix because Neo.
Yeah, well, one of my favourite movies.
Yeah,
so,
awesome.
yeah.
Neo Intelligence, radio. Yeah, awesome. Okay, that's easy. And you guys are going to keep working together with whatever it is that you're
Absolutely.
putting together.
We've formed a partnership
to
to bring the solution to bricklaying businesses
Fair to
across
say
Australia and wherever we go from there.
And fair to say someone can contact you, contact Daniel.
100%.
We can get it to happen. So, yeah, it's been really awesome to have you.
Thanks for having me,
Yep.
guys.
Yep.
Really appreciate it.